What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, Spartans of all ages, Joker back again once again, and welcome to the Greatest Flexes in Halo Part 2. So, in my previous video, Greatest Flexes in Halo Part 1, some people took offense to a comment I made about Spartan-III's being on the same level as Spartan-IIs. Some going as far to say that I should stick to Destiny because I don't know Halo lore. Now, I could just do a side-by-side rundown of the augmentations, or I could talk about how the augmentations that the Spartan-IIIs received were a quantum leap over those given to the Spartan-IIs, or I could play this clip from the A Spartan Will Rise Halo Reach Vidoc.
Noble 6, the team's most recent addition. My, so much black ink. 6 has made entire militia groups disappear. Curious. Hyper-lethal. There's only one other Spartan with that rating.
Now, I don't know about you, but let's do some simple 1 + 1 = 2 common sense here. If Noble 6 is as good as Master Chief, well then, I don't know, must be as good as Master Chief. I know that one really scratches at the back of the brain when you think about it. The guy who's as good as Master Chief is as good as Master Chief, ergo, he must be one of the best Spartans ever created. Gasp. Shock. Horror. That would then mean that Spartan-IIs and Spartan-IIIs are virtually identical. I could then talk about how June is apparently the best Spartan sniper, according to Dr. Halsey.
June, Noble 3. As a sniper, his skills are unmatched.
Mind you, this is in the same universe where Linda exists. You know, Linda, I was hanging upside down and shot elites out of banshees through a small slit. Next fucking flex, Linda! Which really makes me wish we had more info on June, because if he's that good, if he's better than Linda, damn, I want to see that. I need to see that in action. I'm just saying I need to see it. And before somebody goes, but Joker, that happened in First Strike, and the Fall of Reach happens before First Strike. Well, commenter, you're absolutely right. But then again, Halo Reach has no problem retconning things, and Bungie seem to retcon things out of spite. You know, like most of the end of Fall of Reach, or pieces of Halo First Strike, or even bits and pieces of Halo Ghost of Onyx. And if I have to live with it, so do you. But I digress. Anyways, I could point out that Spartan-IIIs have better training than Spartan-IIs, and I'm absolutely sure that would make just the most entertaining video. But as I was digging for lore and flexes, I noticed that Spartan-IIIs have very few stories, but in all the stories that Spartan-IIIs are in, the only thing they seem to be capable of is flexing. By the end of this flexathon, I don't want you to wonder if Spartan-IIIs are as good as Spartan-IIs. Oh no, that would be far too pedantic. I want you to wonder if Spartan-IIs are as good as Spartan-IIIs. Now, of course, we couldn't start a flex video without giving you a chance to flex on me. So if this video reaches 6K likes in the next week, Greatest Flexes in Halo Part 3 will be out, well, within the week. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. First flex! So, to understand this flex and the flexes to come, I'm going to need to explain a few things. Halo vets, sit tight, because, as we all know, every video is someone's first, and if my comment sections are to be believed, some of you so-called Halo vets might need a refresher. Spartan-IIIs use what's called spy armor, or semi-powered infiltration armor. This was an experimental armor system used by the UNSC and was developed for use by Spartan-IIIs. So, what are the pros? The armor is significantly cheaper and easier to mass produce than Mjolnir armor. The system includes photoreactive panels that act as active camouflage for the wearer. The armor is easier to transport because it's not as bulky or as heavy as Mjolnir armor. The armor has an efficient cooling system and is significantly difficult to detect even with thermal scanners. And the faceplate has a 5x zoom. Now we get to the cons. There are no energy shields, unlike the Spartan-II's Mjolnir armor. The exception of this limitation can be found on the Spartan-III Headhunters, as their experimental armor is known to be equipped with energy shields due to their elite nature and value. However, power must be drawn from the energy shields to recharge the suit's active camouflage module. And it does not enhance the Spartan's strength, speed, or agility. At all. Unlike Mjolnir. There's a couple of other cons, but the two ones that we're really here to talk about is the no energy shielding, generally speaking, and the fact that it does not increase speed, strength, or agility. The other little nugget of information that I want you to compartmentalize and store away within your gray matter is about elites. In Halo Reach, we see an elite lift 1,000 pounds plus of Spartan with one hand.
Who's next? I'm ready! How about you?
Covenant also have better shielding and armor and weaponry. Basically, elites are, generally speaking, on the same level as a Spartan-II. I'll also say that, generally speaking, depending on the classification of an elite, they could even be stronger than Spartan-IIs, but the general consensus is that elites are on par with Spartan-IIs. With all of that necessary information on the table, we get to the introductory chapter of Ghost of Onyx. Oh boy, our first but certainly not last flex from Halo Ghost of Onyx appears on page 6. That is, unless you consider ripping open the twisted remains of an ODST pod a flex. I most definitely do, but perhaps it's not list-worthy. Our first flex sees our somewhat point-of-view character Tom engage in close-quarters combat with an elite and win. Quote, he spun around, his MA5K rifle leveled. He found himself face-to-face with the Covenant elite. Its jaw mandibles split into a mockery of an impossibly large human grin. The monster held an energy sword in one hand and a plasma pistol in the other. It shot and swung. Tom sidestepped the deadly arcs of energy, set his foot between the elite's two wide stance, pushed and fired at the same time. The elite sprawled onto the ground, and Tom tracked his body, spraying rounds into the slit of his helmet. He didn't miss. Team Foxtrot closed on him, leaving 6 dead jackals behind. Their bodies snapped like rag dolls. So and I may have forgotten to mention this, 12-year-old Tom in spy armor just engaged an elite in close quarters combat and was fast enough to dodge both the plasma bolts and the energy sword at the same time as taking down the elite in spy armor. So everything that Tom was doing was a product of his own physical capabilities. I'll also point out for the uninitiated that every time a Spartan-II goes into hand-to-hand combat with an elite, this elite is apparently some kind of badass, and it's always somewhat of a near thing. I mean, of course, narrative drama and all that, but for Tom, this elite was barely an inconvenience, and he's 12 in spy armor, not an adult or 15, 16 in Mjolnir armor. Next flex! So the first chapter of Ghost of Onyx should really drive home the point of just how badass the Spartan-IIIs are. But if you don't believe me, let's go ahead and try this flex on for size. Quote, thousands of Covenant clashed with 200 Spartans in open combat. Tracer rounds, crystal shards, plasma bolts, and the flaring of shields made the scene a blur of chaos. The Spartan-IIIs moved with speed and reflexes no Covenant could follow. They dodged, snapped necks and limbs, and with captured energy swords, they cut through the enemy until the field ran with rivers of gore and blue blood. So these 200 12-year-old Spartan-IIIs in spy armor moved so quickly that no Covenant could track them. Not jackals, not grunts, not the on level with Spartan-II elites. The Spartan-IIIs were such massive flexors in this battle that not only were they running circles around the Covenant, but they kept running out of ammo to do so. So they started scavenging ammo from the battlefield, and then using things like energy swords against the Covenant to greater effect. The Spartan-IIIs were flexing on the Covenant so hard that the Covenant realized fighting the Spartan-IIIs in open combat was suicide. So the only thing that they could do was call in 7 huge-ass cruisers and glass the fucking battlefield from orbit. Oh yeah, did I mention that the Spartan-IIIs were doing all of this badass shit without the use of Mjolnir armor, and they were all 12. Next flex! So this one's going to be a little weird because it's not exactly one flex, but a couple of quick hits. And an explainer on why Gamma Company is, categorically, according to the lore, the greatest Spartans ever created. Which is canon, by the way. After all, they did have the benefit of being the 4th generation of Spartans, the 3rd trained by not only Kurt 051, but Franklin Mendez. Kurt 051 being a Spartan-II, for those of you who don't know, and Franklin Mendez being the original Spartan-II trainer. On top of that, they had Tom and Lucy, the 2 surviving members of Beta Company, and decades upon decades of knowledge to work from. Basically, Gamma Company was the perfect storm. By the end of their training, Kurt 051 would remark on how Gamma Company was, quote, the best Spartans ever created. Mind you, like I said, Kurt was a Spartan too. He trained with John, Kelly, Fred, Linda, served alongside them for a time. He also trained the Spartan-III Alpha Company and Beta Company, so if anybody knew who the greatest Spartans ever created were, my money would be on Kurt. Now the thing to know about Gamma Company is, not only did they receive all the same augmentations as the other Spartan-IIIs, which we've established were a quantum leap above those given to the Spartan-IIs, Kurt, lamenting the fact that Alpha Company and Beta Company had, with the exception of Tom and Lucy, a 100% mortality rate, not due to any inadequacies with the Spartan-IIIs, mind you, but purely due to Oni wasting them on suicide missions to buy time. You can be the best soldier in the world, but you're not doing much when 7 Covenant carriers in orbit start glassing the battlefield because the Covenant have realized that fighting Spartan-IIIs in hand-to-hand combat is suicide. And because of all of that, Kurt decided that he was going to try to give his Gamma Company Spartans a better chance at survival. So, along with the extensive augmentations that the Gamma Company Spartans received to become Spartans, he decided that he was also going to give them 3 illegal drugs. The first one was a neural-altering, non-carcinogenic mutagen. Basically what it does is alter key regions in an individual's frontal lobe to enhance aggressive response, making the animal part of the brain more accessible in times of stress. This allows the subject to access an enormous reserve of strength and endurance and enables them to remain fighting even under the influence of wide system shock that would be instantly fatal to a normal human. Depresses higher reasoning centers of the brain over time. Requires regular doses of 00917-PX and 009927-DG to be taken to avoid uncontrollable aggression. Basically, these 2 drugs are what Spartan-IIIs call smoothers. And the mutagen is basically a berserker drug. Though berserker is probably not the best way to explain it, and yet at the same time, it kind of is. For example, our first mini flex. In the book Ghost of Onyx, Dante and Lucy drag Fred's injured body to safety. Mind you, Fred is in full Mjolnir armor, so that's 1,000 pounds of dead weight. Oh yeah! And at this time, Dante is mortally wounded. His left side was grazed by a plasma bolt and a number of needle rounds exploded in his chest, exposing his ribs. At one point, Dante falls behind as the group's retreating and catches up just as Kurt notices his disappearance. He's limping, he's holding his side, and reports that he thinks he's been nicked. At that point, Dante collapses and dies. But the cocktail of berserker drugs was able to keep Dante functioning through having his chest blown open, and dragging all 1,000 plus pounds of Fred to safety. I don't know about you, but that's kinda crazy. And our next mini flex goes to Olivia G291. In the book Halo Last Light, Olivia, with both her legs severely broken, is able to jump in the air on severely broken legs and destroy a sentinel with her bare hands. In fact, she's so out of control, Fred actually has to knock her unconscious with the back of his rifle. Next flex! During Operation Torpedo, which is the opening of Ghost of Onyx, it's said that Spartan-IIIs in spy armor ran at nearly 30 kilometers per hour. For reference, Kelly is the fastest Spartan-II, making her easily the fastest human to have ever lived. She's capable of running for extended periods of up to 62 kilometers per hour, while in her Mjolnir Gen 2 armor. Now, we know that Gen 2 is supposed to, on average, place a Spartan-IV at the same level as a Spartan-II in Gen 1, with the caveat, of course, that it's Gen 2 armor, and Gen 2 armor, as we discussed in the first video, has an upper limit before it fails, so it is capped out under that upper limit and cannot exceed that upper limit, meaning that this armor essentially nerfs Spartan-IIs. The example that I used in the first video is if you take the mountain of a man that is George, and the Spartan-III, the 15-year-old Olivia, and put them both in Gen 2 armor, regardless of the massive physical difference, they will both have the same upper limit, because that upper limit is a design of the armor, not of the Spartan. In Gen 1 armor, the strength modifier was multiplicative based on the user. That said, we do have a benchmark for the Gen 1 Mark IV armor's speed increase. In Halo Reach, we're told that the armor increases the speed by a factor of 5. So if we, for the sake of argument, state that Mjolnir Gen 2 should be able to increase Kelly's speed by a factor of 5, and her top speed is 62 kilometers per hour, while the Spartan-IIIs in spy armor can reach 30 kilometers per hour in unassisted spy armor that does not in any way enhance their speed, all I can say is those are some impressively fast 12-year-olds, and Spartans only grow faster and stronger. Next flex! In Halo Last Light, after being run over, Fred's armor locks up. He is then dragged into the back of a vehicle by Mark G313. Spartan armor clocks in at about 1,000 pounds, I've said this a couple of times now. And given how bulky Fred's armor is, I would say it's probably a little bit more than 1,000 pounds. Fred weighs in at 286 pounds. So Mark G313, in spy armor, is capable of lifting and dragging Fred's 1,286 to 1,400 pound ass into the back of a vehicle. Mind you, Mark is only around 15 or 16 years old at this point, and he's only going to get stronger and faster. Next flex! At the end of Halo Reach, we see Noble 6 do this. This is single-handedly one of the most impressive feats of strength that we've seen somebody in Mark V armor perform. The first elite is an elite general, and in the Halo Essentials visual guide, we're told that General's armor is heavily augmented and boosts enhanced shielding. And Noble 6 is able to not only take them out, but do so with a backhanded elbow strike. Noble 6 then engages with two other elites, including a Zealot, whose shields can take this kind of damage.
What's the status? Over! We've been engaged! Bad guy coming out!
Noble 6 is able to punch the Zealot hard enough to break their shields and stagger them while on the ground with no leverage, as they fight another elite. And while Noble 6 does end up dying here because plot, that doesn't diminish how badass this was, because, let's face it, not even Master Chief is badass enough to escape the plot. Or bad writing. I'm looking at you, Halo 5. Next flex! Emile A239, the Wraith of Noble. I'm always torn when it comes to Emile, like I am with our next Spartan-III. Is Emile cool, or is he an edgelord? Probably a bit of column A and a bit of column B. I always sort of cringe when I see anybody wearing his helmet in PvP, and it's like, you'd think that that would be really up my alley. I am a bit of a goth edgelord myself. And I love the EVA helmet because it resembles the Spy helm, and Kurt 051 is my favorite Spartan, with Kelly being my second favorite Spartan, and she uses EVA. This is part of why I like the helm of Inmost Light in Destiny. But Emile's helmet has always been a little too crawling in my skin for my taste. For every moment like this...
That's what you get when you mess with a Spartan.
Or this...
Find out what she knows.
What's your name? Do you live around here? I'm George.
Shada.
Shada. Se Potroznev. Your accent sounds familiar. Shapron?
Tangari.
Friend of yours?
Father.
Sha'ainalon. I'm sorry.
Why would you be?
Big man forgets what he is sometimes.
She just lost her father. She needs a full psychiatric workup.
She's not the only one.
Lock it down, both of you.
You have moments like this.
6, time for you to leave. Get the package to the pad and get your ass off this planet. I got your back.
The guy is willing to die for his team, and the way he goes out, the guy just gets eviscerated by an energy sword. However, let's go ahead and make a quick comparison. This is Emile.
Who's next? I'm ready! How about you?
And this is Roland from the Headhunters short story. Roland just literally sits there and all he can do is die. Which is not saying anything against Roland. I mean, he had an energy sword impaled through his torso. That just proves how much of a badass Emile was. He's like, I'm going out, you're coming with me. And it's one hell of a maneuver. Emile basically pulls himself off the energy sword and in one fluid motion stabs the elite through his shields and armor, killing him. Next flex! Jonah B283, We Hardly Knew Ye, first and only appearance is in the short story turned animated short, Headhunters. And after going back and watching the animated short and reading the short story for this video, I'm gonna be real, I'm gonna be honest, the short story in Halo Evolutions is way better than the animated short. For example, in the animated short, Jonah gives us this line.
This ends one of two ways, Chief. I walk out of here with your teeth hanging from a string around my neck, or I die with my fist down someone's throat. Either way is fine with me. So let's get to it already.
But the end of that is not quite the way it goes down in the book. Instead of, so let's get to it already, he actually says, so let's get this party started. I'm late for a hot date and I don't want to keep your sisters waiting. Juvenile, yes, but he is looking down the Spartan equivalent of elites and he's making jokes. So, you know what? Massive flex. But really, this whole story is just Jonah flexing. I mean, the guy walks into a Covenant barracks and just goes to town killing people. He's like,
oh boy, here I go killing again.
and after clearing the barracks, he proceeds to just kind of walk out and, well, does this.
Light him up.
But the end of the story is really where we get his finest moment, his biggest flex.
Clear.
The only problem is the animation doesn't really elaborate on it or do it justice. So as he's being held there, in true Spartans Never Die fashion, and he's about to set off these explosives, he thinks to himself, 6 of you, for me? Fair trade. Next flex! And now we come to the final flex. The final flex tier. The flex that proves, without a doubt, just how badass Spartan-IIIs are. Quote, Ghost of Onyx. Still, Kelly's combat training kicked in. She had to reposition, but that would mean leaving Dr. Halsey vulnerable. One of the unknown was near. She couldn't hear it, just a tickling on the back of her mind, a sixth sense that told her she was being watched, and whatever was doing the watching was now too close for comfort. There was a motion in Kelly's peripheral vision, a blur. She spun and saw a ghostly figure moving towards her, faster than any human could move. Kelly sidestepped, grabbed the arm, twisted. Her opponent reverse twisted and countered the lock. Whatever it wasn't human. Otherwise, Kelly would have ripped its human arm from its socket. Her opponent twisted her wrist and escaped Kelly's grip. Kelly was still faster. Her other hand lashed out, palm flat, and impacted the solar plexus. The other figure flew back 2 meters, hit a tree, and slumped. Stand down, Spartan, Kelly whirled. She recognized the voice. Not Mendez's, but another voice from the past. One that couldn't be. That person was dead. Before her stood a figure, wavering as if a mirage. Then the active camouflage faded, and a person in what looked like cut-down Mjolnir armor was there. One hand holding an MA5 SK rifle, pointed at the ground, the other held up. No time to explain, Kelly, this man said over the comm. Move, hostiles in. An explosion tore through the jungle. So, for the record here, just so we are absolutely positively clear, just so the slower ones in the group are on the same page. Kelly, in full Mjolnir Gen 1 armor, got into a grappling fight with a Spartan-III in spy armor, which she didn't know it was a Spartan-III at the time. Something was just attacking her, so she fought it like she would fight anything. And the Spartan-III broke the grab, a grab so strong that had the Spartan-III been a normal human, it would have ripped their arm off. And then the Spartan-III managed to start to reverse the grab. Sure, it didn't work out for them in the long run, but Kelly's in Mjolnir armor, and the Spartan-III is in spy armor. That, ladies and gents, boys and girls, Spartans and elites of all ages, is what we call a flex. Oh yeah, and that hit that Kelly got in on the Spartan-III didn't even seem to faze them, as they were up and moving faster than Kelly even noticed. This is picking up just after the explosion. Kelly ducked and placed herself between the blast and Dr. Halsey. Splinters and stones pelted the energy shields of her Mjolnir armor. When the dust cleared, the other person, the one that had sounded impossibly like Kurt, had vanished. So was the soldier she had knocked out. Look, all I'm saying is the Spartan-III went up against the Spartan-II. The Spartan-II was in Mjolnir armor, the Spartan-III was in spy armor. Kelly was reacting. She was trying to kill this unknown threat. The Spartan-III wasn't trying to kill Kelly. The Spartan-III in spy armor, which I'll remind you does not enhance their abilities, is able to go toe-to-toe with Kelly in full-blown Mjolnir armor and hold their own. And with that, we conclude the Greatest Flexes in Halo Part 2, Spartan-III Edition. I hope this video lays to rest, definitively, that not only are Spartan-IIIs fucking badasses, but they are as good, if not better, than their Spartan-II counterparts. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and remember, if this video gets 6,000 likes, the Greatest Flexes in Halo Part 3 will be out within the week. Remember to subscribe for more, and donate to my Patreon if you're feeling generous. But above all else, stay frosty.